All right, guys, we are back in my garage for another video, and a lot of you have probably seen the headlines about the new BMW screw that was recently submitted in a patent application. This is a new design that they want to get patented for their cars, and as you can see, it pretty obviously is a BMW design. But I think a lot of people are freaking out for no reason, and I think it's getting blown out of proportion. Granted, if you guys have followed me for any amount of time, you know I'm no stranger to making excuses for BMW. I'm not particularly a fanboy, but I am an engineer and I do understand what it takes to innovate and push platforms into the next stage of development so that you can pretty much define the direction for where things are headed. And I think that this is a very small change that is getting blown out of proportion because of how the patent was written. So after reading through it myself, I want to go through it with you guys and explain what's in there, what isn't, and we'll just kind of go through the details to share my thoughts on where this is actually going to be headed. And of course, I'll have it linked down in the description as well so you can read it for yourself. So let's go ahead and talk about it, and hopefully you guys find this video useful.
Now, as always, for everybody that's new to the channel, I create these videos to help keep you updated on the latest developments in our community, as well as discuss technical topics so that we have a better understanding of how our engines work. So if you're interested in more videos like that, be sure to subscribe because there will be a lot more coming out in the future.
So the way that this patent application starts out is actually kind of entertaining to me. You can tell that this is going to an office of people that are probably seeing patent applications for crazy inventions and new technologies all the time. So it's really important to baseline what you're going to be talking about as you go into the details. So it literally starts with explaining what a screw is. It explains, the shape of a screw with a shaft that has threads on it that can be inserted into a substrate that's securing a nut and all of these things. It's just super detailed on something that's so well understood by pretty much everybody. It's kind of funny how much they put into describing what a screw is. But after explaining what a screw is, it gets even more entertaining because they explain that maybe the screw has a couple recesses in the top. Maybe those recesses are shaped at a 90-degree angle. Maybe those 90-degree angles are opposite of each other. And maybe inside those recesses, there will be a little bit of paint, maybe a color, blue. I don't know. I don't want to make any assumptions, just throwing out things that might happen here. Maybe there's a circle around the recesses, and maybe there's a stamped logo on top that maybe shapes the letters BMW. Yeah, it's pretty obvious what they're trying to explain here, but they word it extremely thoroughly to make sure it's fully explaining what they are going to be patenting. And if you look at the claims, you can see that that is a part of what they're standing on. So they're explaining that a screw with a specific shape and with specific details to how the shape is organized and how everything is set up with the BMW logo is going to be under this patent. And there are a couple different shapes to the screw. You can see they have like a flathead bolt. They also have a countersunk screw, and they even have one with a raised section in the middle where you would actually, insert your tool in order to remove the screw. So they have a couple different ideas for how this could be implemented, and all of it should be covered under this patent application. Now, looking at the pictures and seeing that explanation, again, I came up with a lot of different reasons why you might want to patent this. It seems to be a pretty decorative style of a screw, something that you might see on different trim pieces, like on your steering wheel or certain aluminum plates, especially in their higher end cars that have like aluminum trim. You might see this on the interior or somewhere on the exterior to kind of, dress up the car a little bit. So it didn't really seem that far-fetched for a luxury car brand like BMW to try to patent something like this. And I've even had friends go through different kind of copyright issues with BMW. I know we have a local shop called M-Works, and their original logo had the BMW M symbol in it. So after a couple years, they got a cease and desist from BMW. So they changed their logo to remove the M logo from it. And then BMW sent them another cease and desist saying they wanted them to change the name completely, as if BMW had copyright claims to the letter M. Now that one fell through, but again, obviously BMW is no stranger to filing these kinds of copyright concerns, and they want to protect their IP. So I'm not surprised that they would try to patent something like this. And granted, it is pretty slick. If you look at the design, it seems like something that is really convenient to not only match the shape of their logo, but also be something that could be used as a functional fastener. So with that initial assumption, it was pretty frustrating to see everybody saying that this was some huge decision by BMW to make it more difficult to work on your cars. And then I read more into the patent. And here you can see BMW explicitly states that when looking at more common screw designs like a Torx bit or a Phillips head screw, that such drive structures are so common that screw connections created with these screws can easily be loosened or tightened by individuals. However, there are applications of screw connections where only a limited group of people should be able to manipulate, loosen, or create a screw connection. Now, they give a couple examples in the patent application. They talk about securing the center console to the body or securing the seats to the body. And that's something that seems pretty weak. That's a pretty weak argument for some features on the car that aren't really super critical. I would say that my first thought when reading this is there are already multiple tamper-resistant screws on our cars. The most common one I run into is your MAF sensor on top of your intake. Those usually are installed with tamper-resistant screws, and as I've swapped out intakes on my cars before, I've had to buy the tools in order to remove those, and it looks just like a regular Torx bit, but it has a little raised section in the middle, so a regular Torx bit won't fit. You need one with a little hole in it so that it can actually remove those screws. And my understanding is it's specifically used on MAF sensors a lot because that's emissions equipment, and OEMs are required by law to do a reasonable amount of work to make it difficult to modify emissions equipment, which of course your MAF sensor is pretty critical to the emissions of your car and how it manages the air-fuel mixture. So that's something that they do to make it more difficult to remove. But to that point, I'm wondering what would be your basis to say that your seats or center console trim or basically anything else inside the car could be critical to safety to where a common person shouldn't be able to remove it. But after thinking about that for a while, I realized it just doesn't make sense. There are absolutely too many reasons why this would be a bad idea for BMW. And looking at the way that the patent application is already worded, I think this is just another part of their narrative to explain why they should be able to patent it to help motivate the application to be approved. Again, they don't know who's reading this. It's not necessarily a car guy or somebody that's super deep in the automotive space. So they want to make sure that they put as much basis or background in making sure this appears unique and super critical to the car. So it's something that they need to help support, the future of their manufacturing. Now, in reality, these screws are going to be very expensive to make. This is not something that they would want to use all over the car, especially on critical components that you would need to install. The reason why you see a lot of Torx screws on cars nowadays is because they help reduce the cost of manufacturing by speeding up how quickly an operator can install the part. So if you're using a powered screwdriver on the line, you want to make sure that you get the engagement between the bit and the screw as quickly as possible to hit your required torque and get as many screws in as quickly as you can to get those cars out of the door. Having this kind of proprietary design is going to basically be a huge step backwards. It's going to be more difficult to install. Even if they have the exact specialized tool, say this was, installing trim in the engine bay, whoever would have to do that would take probably 3 times as long compared to just using regular Torx bits to get all of those features installed, because the bit's going to take longer to line up. It's going to take longer to hit torque. If it strips out, it's going to be harder to remove. There are just a lot of big risks that come with using this design screw. And just keep in mind, BMW isn't new to designing proprietary fasteners. I've got a full drawer of specialized tools to work on my BMWs, and it seems like every new engine comes with something slightly different or something slightly unique that not only requires a specialized tool, but if you're working on it with a more traditional tool, it could potentially damage something. I'm thinking like injectors and camshafts and stuff that are pretty well stabilized in the industry nowadays. There are still going to be unique features on the BMW version of those that require specialized tools. Otherwise, if you use something more regular, it could potentially stretch or damage or break something in your engine. So going through the extra work just to make a proprietary BMW logo screw doesn't really support what they're doing. It's counterintuitive when everything else is already going to be difficult to remove anyway, especially those more critical components. So that being said, we'll have to see what ends up actually coming out of this. It looks like this was originally submitted in June of 2024, and then just more recently in December of 2025 became published and available to the public to review. So we'll see. I don't know which generation of vehicles this will come out with, or if it'll even end up becoming something. Maybe it was just something that they patented, again, to protect their IP and their likeness, so other people can't try to generate that and sell it for a monetary gain. And, I still think that this is going to be something that's relatively small. You don't even really know what size the screws are. In theory, they could be multiple sizes because everything in the actual patent application is based on angles and ratios of the different features to match the design of the BMW logo, but nothing specifies a certain thread pitch or a certain size screw head or anything like that. So this could be, again, like a really small screw that's just used to fix trim. Maybe it's on, the aluminum trim on your steering wheel, kind of holding it in place. Or maybe it's for a specialized model for the number plaque to say it's 1 out of 30 or something like that. We really don't know, but I would not anticipate that this is going to be something that you'll run into if you try to just do an oil change or regular service on your car. So we'll see, but that's kind of my argument for a company that really doesn't pay me any money or give me a reason to do that. Just kind of my thoughts as an engineer and looking at this from a holistic view and what I've read in the patent and what makes sense for any big multi-million-dollar OEM to put in place with this kind of thing. So let me know your thoughts if you think I'm completely off the mark, or if you've read through the patent and have your own thoughts behind what they tried to present. Definitely curious to hear what you guys have to say. But otherwise, I think that's it for this video. So thank you guys for watching, and I hope this helps. And if you have any other questions or comments, leave them down below.